Hi, my name is Keith Skinner. I'm one of the shepherds at the Beltline Church of Christ in Decatur, Alabama, and I'd like to share some thoughts with you that originated on the golf course of all places. My oldest boy and I love to meet together to play golf, and we'll drive a considerable distance to meet together and play a few rounds. Well, the other day, after about 6 or 8 holes, I was strolling up on the tee box and I made the statement, I would love to be able just to hit the ball straight a time or two. And he said, I've read it takes 10,000 hours to master a skill. And I said, well, thank you. Because now every time a shot goes haywire, I just say, well, I don't have my 10,000 hours in yet. But let's consider that in terms of our spiritual walk for just a minute. In the working world, very easy to understand that. Say a person wants to be a master electrician. He's going to work under a master electrician for approximately 5 years before he can achieve the qualification to become a master electrician. In engineering school, you spend about 2 years on your specific discipline taking courses that will equip you to do that job when you start your career. But when you start your career, you're working as an entry-level engineer under an experienced engineer for some period of time until you develop the competencies and the proficiencies to do that job. Think about lawyers and doctors, the amount of time they spend in school and put in the effort to achieve the competencies and the knowledge that's required for them to pursue their profession. And it's interesting, today marks 40 years that I signed on the dotted line for my first professional job. And you know what? It's been 40 years of continual learning. I've not only been encouraged to read, I've been required to read to stay current and informed on everything going on in my industry and my specific job function. In the spiritual realm, in our Christianity, consider this with me for just a minute. We typically will show up on Sunday morning and hear a 30-minute sermon. Then we stay for Bible class, another 30 minutes after everyone's got their cup of coffee and we made our announcements. We come back Sunday night for another 30-minute worship service, and then midweek Bible school for another 30 minutes. So we've put in about 2 hours that week toward spiritual matters. And if you multiply that times 52 weeks in a year, roughly 100 hours in a given year that we've devoted to spiritual matters. Now, if you divide that into our 10,000 hours, you can see it will take 100 years to develop mastery of God's plan. And what do I mean by God's plan? I mean a relationship with Him, knowledge of God's Word, becoming a resilient disciple, and actually understanding what God's will is for our lives. That sounds a whole lot like 2 Timothy 2:15, doesn't it? Listen to these words. Study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman who needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. I had to quote that from the King James because that's how I learned it. But if you'll consider all the confusion that's in the religious world today, perhaps it's because we haven't applied that verse like we should. We just sold our house recently, so it's been a process of cleaning, decluttering, packing, and reminiscing. And I want to share something with you I came across in that effort. I found a book in a box up in the attic that I had purchased a long time ago. It's entitled The Commitment of Champions by Blass and Koehler. It's a series of stories of prominent athletes and coaches, prominent figures that have been very successful, but that built careers on service and adherence to godly principles. One in particular that I really liked is the story of Larry Nelson. He was a PGA tour golfer for a dozen years or so, won several big tournaments, but he always managed to align godly principles with the way he conducted himself, both personally and professionally. He had a couple quotes that are very good. One, he said, "You can't, if you can't be a Christian where you are, then you can't be a Christian." I thought that was very good. And another thing is, he said a lot of people don't experience success because they're not willing to experience failure. In other words, they don't try. I like the way Teddy Roosevelt said it in a speech in April of 1910 in the Sorbonne in Paris, France. The speech is entitled "A Citizenship in the Republic," or "Citizenship in a Republic." But a portion of that speech has become as popular today as it was back then, entitled "The Man in the Arena." And I want to read that to you real quickly. Listen to these words. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." I love that. Mainly because we have so many cold and timid souls out there today who would rather complain and criticize than do the work. We need to be different. You and I need to be different. I want to challenge you and me today to put in our 10,000 hours for the Lord. I want to challenge us to be that man or that woman in the arena. I know you can do it. I believe in you, but more importantly, the Lord believes in you. Let's get out there and make a difference.